Hey YouTube, Untamed here. The pros and cons of an electric vehicle, they're debatable. But what isn't debatable is the resale values of them. Resale values of EVs continue to plummet year after year. There are several reasons and factors as to why this is, and I'll talk through that in today's video. I'll leave the most alarming stats, facts, and figures for the end of this video, so stick with me as we talk through the depreciating problem of EVs. We all know the second you drive a vehicle off a dealership lot, it's going to lose some value. On average, it's about 10 to 15% of the vehicle's MSRP, the value, as soon as you drive it off. As soon as it becomes a used vehicle, it loses that much. Before the pandemic, when you would drive a vehicle for 5 years, that vehicle would lose between 60 and 70% of its resale value within the first 5 years of ownership. Fast forward to 2025, after the pandemic, used values on combustion engine vehicles has gone up substantially. Now, after 5 years, we're looking at 40 to 50% of the value lost in that vehicle. Why is it that EV sales continue to plummet? There's a lot of skepticism around electric vehicles still. People still worry about the longevity of the batteries. They still worry about the cost of having to replace that battery, and we all know how expensive they can be. People also worry about the charging infrastructure around the United States. It limits their travel options. The whole network itself is a limiting factor, and that is a reason why a lot of people choose to go the combustion engine route. So think about why we buy vehicles in the first place versus using things like public transit. We do it for the freedom that it offers. Being able to go to any gas station within any city, any town, there's going to be multiple, we all know it. Filling up your tank, driving to the beach and back, or driving to a lake and back, wherever you want to go, the freedom that a vehicle offers you. An EV only adds some additional stipulations to it, right? It restricts you a bit more. So not only are they more limiting in how you can drive and how far you can drive and where you can go, EVs on average will run you about $9,000 more than a combustion vehicle. Because of that, generally speaking, it is the upper middle class and wealthier who are the target demographics. They're the individuals buying these EVs. And those people buying the EVs, this is not typically their primary vehicle. It is generally their secondary or third vehicle within the household. And the popularity of EVs is regional, of course. It is based on where you live. If you live in a very dense populated city like Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, they are more popular and more prominent there because it just makes a little bit more sense. But if you live in a little bit more of a rural location out in the boondocks, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to, of course, buy an electric vehicle. And let's face it, where are the highest paying jobs located? They're located in the very dense cities. So again, the wealthier people are the ones who are actually buying EVs up until this point. Up until recently, September 30th of 2025, there was a federal subsidy being offered of $7,500, that tax credit being offered on new EV purchases, $4,500 for used EV purchases. Well, that went away, and that is going to have a ripple effect on the popularity of EV purchases moving forward. That was a huge driving factor for so many people who decided to buy them. And like I mentioned before, with them being a secondary or third vehicle within the household, that was just an additional nudge for people to buy them. Now, that's no more. On the flip side of that same coin, it will undoubtedly impact the resale of EVs without having the subsidies, right? Without having all the additional state and federal subsidies being offered on electric vehicles, that means they're being sold at a much higher price now, unless vehicle manufacturers decide to drop MSRP substantially, which they likely won't, especially by $7,500 or more. They will be sold at higher price tags. So within the next 2-3 years, we might just see the values of used options go up a little bit more, but that will take some time. Another important thing to consider when it comes to electric vehicles is they are stuffed to the gills with technology. And what does technology do? It ages out and advances so quickly. So it's very easy for an electric vehicle to quickly become, well, antiquated, right? For it to become old. When you get into a 2017 Tesla, and then when you jump into a 2025 Tesla, it's going to feel extremely different. And for EV buyers, that is important to them. A lot of EV buyers really value and appreciate the latest and greatest technology, and rightfully so, especially if you're buying that vehicle. So that is a huge pain point when it comes to the used values. Brings me to today's video sponsor, and that is Last Fit Floor Liners. I have them in my Ford F-150 Raptor here. I want to show you how they've withstood the test of time and really withstood 5 kiddos, the foot traffic of 5 kiddos. That's what we have. So let me show you real quick and remind you just how great they are. So after 2 months of use, you can tell, that collects absolutely everything. It keeps all the dirt and debris debris off of the carpets, and that's the important bit, of course. Let me remind you, and show you rather, just how easy they are to clean. So we'll spray on some cleaner here and take a microfiber towel here and just wipe away the debris. And obviously, for any kind of larger pieces of dirt and rocks, you can of course vacuum it out very easily because there are very large slats between throughout the entire mat, which I really appreciate. So very simple, spray it and just begin wiping it away. I feel like Billy Mays here with the ShamWell. That's what I feel like right now. But it is very simple to clean, and I do appreciate that. And I'll show you the carnage out back. This is what it looks like having kiddos, just always something on the ground, always dirt and debris. So it is nice to know that they are laser 3D fitted and everything. All edges are going to be covered and overlaps onto the door sill and entry points. This is made of a TPE material, so it is not as soft as rubber, but not as hard and rigid as polyurethane. So it is very easy to fit into your vehicle, and it places very nicely, and it won't yellow or harden over time. And after about 25 seconds of wiping it down, this is kind of what you're going to end up with. So very easy, very quick cleaning process in general. And thank you and shout out to Last Fit Floor Liners. Really appreciate the products that they produce. I'll put the latest and greatest discount code in the video description, as well as my affiliate link. Please consider using it if you are interested in picking up a set for yourself. Just like the luxury SUV segment, those vehicles are purchased by wealthy individuals. Those vehicles see the largest depreciation hit within the first 5 years of ownership. That's because the wealthy individuals, they're more likely to go out and buy a brand new example comparatively to buying a used, even a lightly used example. And that's why they cannot maintain any good resale value. They would rather buy new versus used. And the same goes for EVs. With technology advancing so quickly, the charging capabilities of these vehicles has changed tremendously just within the last 10 years. And that has a direct impact on the resale in and of itself. Unlike a gas vehicle, you just put gas in it and drive, the charging capability and the quickness of the charging has changed from 400 volt to 800 volt charging capabilities. That in and of itself has expedited the charging time frame tremendously. Well, to wealthy people, time is money, as they say. One staggering statistic is 71% of all the new EVs that rolled off dealership lots here in 2025 were leases. They weren't direct purchases. So what does that mean for the used market here in a few years? By 2028, we'll have a tremendous amount of used, lightly used electric vehicles hitting the used market. There's just going to be this flood of EVs, ultimately adversely impacting the resales even more. Although this next point doesn't directly impact the resaleability of electric vehicles, I do think it's an important note to consider in this video. I think we can all agree that EVs are often politicized. Just recently, Tesla, of course, being associated with Elon Musk and Elon Musk's relationship with President Trump, that obviously drove some tension for folks within the United States in and of itself. But generally speaking, EVs are a little bit more of a left-leaning priority, right? The whole green energy movement generally is a Democrat or a liberal priority. So the politics is a factor to consider. Prime example of just that is underneath the Trump administration, they have actually lessened the restrictions and regulations within the EPA itself. The EPA has driven the need for so many vehicle manufacturers to invest a ton of money into the research and development of the electric vehicle segment. But with the EPA restrictions or regulations being lifted a bit, well, it kind of lessens their need and desire to do so. It lessens the profitability of it for sure. And one important note I'll include in this video, and I think it's often lost on so many people, is although we did just get rid of that $7,500 government subsidy, it's important to note where that money came from. That is a taxpayer-funded credit. So you and I, the American taxpayers, we ultimately foot the bill for those subsidies to take place. So good or bad, depending on what side of the fence you're on, really, but that is a point to consider. We are no longer footing the bill for those subsidies for EV purchases. And I won't open the can of worms totally in this video, but there is the age-old debate of, are electric vehicles truly better for the environment? Obviously, there's debates and arguments on both sides of this discussion. A lot of people do worry that the extraction of the rare earth minerals needed to actually create the batteries needed for these EVs is perhaps even more harmful for the environment ultimately compared to the entire lifespan of a gas or combustion engine vehicle. There's debates on both sides of the fence, of course, right? But that is something to consider too when it comes to the popularity and the resale of these vehicles. And just looking at the facts and stats solely, it doesn't appear that electric vehicles are going to be a very prominent part of the auto industry in the next 5 to 10 years. Do I personally believe that EVs are a very important vehicle to have as an option? Absolutely. But just that. I want them to be only an option for folks, not forced and crammed down our throats. And I think a lot of fellow Americans probably agree with me on that. Love it as an option, but we don't want it as the sole priority. A lot of vehicle manufacturers like Toyota and Honda in particular, they decided to focus a lot less on their electric vehicle segment, especially as they see losses across the board from other vehicle manufacturers like Ford. They lost $4.2 billion over the course of 2.5 years on their EV segment alone. That is quite alarming. So Toyota, Honda, other vehicle manufacturers, Nissan too even, they're lessening how much they invest in the segment because they know the popularity just isn't there right now. Americans, for the most part, have not totally bought off on electric vehicles. So instead, they're really leaning into and doubling down on the whole hybrid segment. Electric and, of course, combustion engine combined. That's what they're leaning into. And you look at Toyota in particular, dang near every single one of their models has a hybrid option nowadays. Even the Toyota Tacoma, the Tundra, the 4Runner, Sequoia, Land Cruiser, everything seemingly is hybridized. Smaller displacement motors, hybridizing. So they're kind of trying to find that happy medium without going all in on the EV segment. You tell me, do you think that's a good idea? Electric vehicles with all their technology doesn't allow them to age well, like we mentioned. Old is gold, as they say. And that's why we see so many old Hondas, old Toyotas with very simplistic interior and exterior designs, simplistic engines, reliable engines, and affordable options back in the day, going for huge money in 2025 here. People miss reliability, they miss simplicity, and they miss affordability. All those things have gone far out the window with most vehicle manufacturers today, to include Toyota and Honda, let's face it. I mean, just look at a 2013 Mercedes-Benz. Go look at any 2013 Mercedes and you look at the interior and you'll be wildly disappointed with just how old and antiquated it feels when you're inside of it. But back in 2013, that was cutting edge. That was top of the line technology, right? The best of the best. But now look how quick it changed. So whenever we're trying to put the best of the best tech within these vehicles, it quickly ages out and it quickly diminishes the value. Let me know what your thoughts are. What do we need to see from electric vehicles to up the popularity within the United States? What is it that we're going to need to see from these vehicles to up their resale too? I'm genuinely curious what you guys think. Thanks for watching as always. If you appreciate this type of content whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton and I promise you it doesn't go unnoticed. Till next time.